All right, Matty, we're back here with the draft ranking show. It's another week closer to the NFL Combine. We got this week, next week, and then Monday we show up in Indianapolis, and it's 10 toes down for about 7 days. I'm ready. I'm getting closer. I shouldn't say I'm ready. I'm getting closer to being ready. And I've gotten through a number of positions in phase two of my evaluating, and I want to kind of check with you because I've texted you this much about mostly about the Patriots, but I've texted you this much about specific players, and I kind of want to measure ourselves up going into the combine at a couple of positions. I know you're working on a big board update. I'm working on my first big board iteration that's going to come out probably next week, mid next week. My positional rankings will be out mid next week at rosterwatch.com. Your stuff's over at playerprofiler.com. You guys can get that update over there. Matty, I want to talk edge. I want to talk a little bit of tackle.
Okay.
And then maybe a little bit interior. But we do have to open up with this. How is your Monday going?
Monday's bad when you learn that your team had a fraudulent season. It's a tough pill to swallow. I fought it as long as I could. As a fan of the Patriots, I was going to fight tooth and nail. Didn't care about the schedule. Didn't care about how the everything fell perfectly in line in the playoffs. But when the haters end up being right, you're gonna have to take on the chin. It reminds me a lot of that 2017 Pats team. I got a text from a buddy that said the worst 17-1 team of all time. And when the haters are right, you're just lame if you can't take it on the chin. If you want to just go back and forth, they're a fraudulent team. It was a fraudulent season, and last night was a miserable experience. I'm glad to move on. I'm happy the NFL allows us to just move on. So let's move on.
Let's move on. And I've got one more thing I want to bring up before we get to those positions: edge, tackle, maybe interior. The last couple of weeks I've been doing shows. I know a number of people in the space have had the same theory and thoughts about Mike Washington Jr., the running back from Arkansas. His age to me has been the biggest red flag. Yes, he had a bunch of fumbles last year. I think he had 7 last year, or maybe it was the last 2 years he had 7. But the only really red flag on his profile outside of not breaking out until this year was this theory that he was 25. He's going to be 25 years old this summer on July 3rd. Turns out the date was wrong. We got the wrong date. And that can happen sometimes, not very often. It's very rare that you get a wrong date because normally a date of birth comes from the team website, doing data digging on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and things like this to try and find birthdays and stuff, or directly from the source. But we don't really get the NFL date of births until post-combine. Mm-hmm. So we've kind of just been working with dates. The date we got put Mike Washington at 25 years old on July 3rd. Turns out he's going to be 23 on July 3rd. So we kind of just picked up 2 years.
That's crazy.
We kind of just picked up 2 years in the vacuum here. His breakout's now 22. He's 22 and some change. He's 22 and a half right now. Going through the combine at 22 and a half. That's a lot different. And we'll talk about just really quickly, but that's a lot different than going through at 24 and a half, right? And the theory that this guy was just out there bastardizing kids on the football field. and like, hey, he's Clinton Portis in 2025. And you're like, yeah, but he's 24. Yeah. So Mike Washington, officially 22 and a half years old right now, going to be 23 at the combine and going to be 23 and some change when the season opens up. So just wanted to clarify that and say that at the current stage, I have him as my running back 2 behind Jeremiah Love. It was really close between him and Nick Singleton for me. Singleton, obviously, with the foot. I like Katron Allen quite a bit too. And I know you like Jonah Coleman, and I like Jonah Coleman. I heard you talking about Jonah Coleman on Mind to Mansion last week. I have my concerns with Jonah Coleman. I am not sure how fast he's going to be. I have him projected at a 4.58. I'm a little worried. I'm upset he didn't show up at the Senior Bowl, so he gets a little bit of a negative tick for that. And then, Mike Washington was just a maniac down there in Mobile. We talked about that a little bit last week, but at 6'1.5", 228, I think he's going to run low 4.5s. And now I just picked up 2 more years on the profile. I've bumped Mike Washington ahead of that little group there, and I put him at running back 2. Now post birthday change.
The birthday change, I'm happy for him. I mean, getting 2 more years, I'd kill to be, 2 years younger like that. That'd be cool. But I don't know. When it comes to the profile, I'm okay with him being eventually like a top 3 receiver running back in the class, but it's really just more of a comment on the class than it is the profile or the player.
Yep.
I'm not big fan of Mike Washington. I kind of skew it. I kind of I'm going to go back through my notes. I'm going to go back through the databases cuz I kind of want to see something. It feels like recently, maybe this is just anecdotal, but these bum I don't want to say bum. That's not fair. L- these guys without production stats who test well and are big and fast don't typically translate as much as the good football players who are labeled slow. And I'm talking about like the Tyler Algiers, the Devin Singletaries, like these guys who aren't fast stick around where the Isaac Garendos, the Jalen Wrights, these guys just haven't been the ones that stick around. So I don't really care if the Jonah Coleman's a little bit slower, or if Kalen Black, who was one of my favorites coming out of Mobile, is a little bit slower than these guys. I think I'm just gonna go with production at this position and really gonna weigh my rankings. But Mike Washington, after talking to you, and definitely after this bump, is going to be probably top 6, maybe number 7 in my running back rankings, which
Ooh.
is a massive jump from 20 or 15 wherever I had him. So this will be a good jump for him, and but it's just it's a nature of the class. The class to me at this position lacks any type of wow factor outside of Jeremiah Love, and I kind of feel bad about Jeremiah Love because, truth be told, you combine last year's running backs, this year's running backs, he's still my number 1 running back coming out of college. That's how much I love the profile of Jeremiah Love, but this class is just being weighed down by the insignificant upside at this position. But Mike Washington getting 2 years, congrats to you, bud. That definitely is going to help all of the guys who, use the analytical profiles and kind of use those type of metrics. That is obviously going to help.
I really think you need to go back and watch some of the team workouts from the Senior Bowl. I really think you would like them a little bit more if you would have just. I mean, just seeing the thing is, like, I know you went back and watched it, but being there with your eyes, and I'm not trying to rub that in at all, but
Yeah,
being there
sure.
with your and seeing him, like, I really think when you see him at the combine, you're gonna be like, oh, okay, like this guy's a little bit like Kalen Black was good, but like Kalen Black physically, like, just to compare the two guys, because those are the two that were brought up here, but it's like you're like, oh, that thing's a monster. That is a, like a Ollie Gordon, Rocket Sanders, Caleb Johnson, Omarion Hampton level freak, athletic.
Right, but
Like,
you just named 3 busts
I
in
just named just
one
dudes from last
guy.
year's class that were big, and like, I mean, I wouldn't say bust. Like Rocket Sanders played some snaps last year as like an
Brother,
undrafted guy with the Browns.
brother, don't do this here on this here
Brother,
podcast.
he
Don't do
got
it, brother.
snaps, ran the ball.
Brother.
I'm not saying he did anything good, but I'm saying, like, I could have said Damian Martinez. You could have said, okay, that was a bust.
What's the difference? 3 carries and 1 touchdown? Like,
Damian Martinez didn't play, period.
yeah, neither did Rocket Sanders. He played
Rocket
1 game.
Sanders played snaps for the Browns,
And once everyone came back healthy, he did not.
but he
And never
played
did.
football.
Okay, you're trying to rope me
Undrafted,
into a
played
different
football.
conversation. We're not talking about whether or not he played football. We're talking about you said he is not categorically a bust, which
But I'm
is
talking,
wild.
he's not a bust. He's a UDFA. He
Yeah.
made a roster.
Yeah.
That's technically the
Yeah.
opposite of a bust.
What I said is you're highlighting 3 guys who did not do anything in the NFL last year.
Ollie Gordon. The point is, these guys are here listing 6'1", 226. Rocket Sanders, 6 foot, 217. Caleb Johnson, 6'1", 224. Omarion Hampton, 5'11" and 3/4, 221. Bigger backs that physically, when you see them in person, you're
Braylon
like,
Allen,
oh
like when we
shit.
saw Braylon Allen a couple years ago, you're like, oh
Braylon
shit, that
Allen.
kid is bigger. Okay. Yeah, but
Oh shit.
I don't get enamored with that as much throughout my process. Some people, and I get why it matters. Don't get me wrong, and don't get me wrong. You know how I am when I get my eyes on it in Indy. Maybe Mike Washington does go, oh yeah, now I see what you're saying. But I kind of deduct points from my profile when you have that and you can't produce. I would rather see a guy do more with less than do less with more. So his wow is going to have to be like, wow, and give me an explanation why he didn't get over 730 yards in a given season until 2025.
Well, I mean, I could tell you, just like, if I really wanted to spin the story, if I wanted to Matt Kelly this thing, I'll just tell you he went to Buffalo, because he was a 2-star prospect out of high school, and then he matured at Buffalo, and then he didn't play a lot 2023. I can't really write the 2023 season off the much, but he transferred up to this Conference USA to New Mexico and played with another draftable prospect, borderline draftable prospect, and Seth McGowan. Then transferred again up to the SEC and had his best season of his career and broke out. 20 plus receptions, 1,000 yards on the ground. Like, he matured year over year over year. He's not, Nick. Can you actually tell me, like, to my face, that you would rather have a guy like Nick Singleton who comes in big, like, listen, follow me here. Follow me.
Yes.
Follow me. I agree. Follow me, though.
Okay.
Nick Singleton comes in, sets the squat record at Penn State. He's a 5-star prospect following in the shoes of Saquon and Miles Sanders. And he comes in and he disappoints for all intents and purposes because Katron Allen, who can't catch the football out of the backfield and doesn't really have that much burst and acceleration, outplays him from a consistency perspective. He's the 5-star prospect, though. And what it feels like the last 2 years consistently has been like this, a constant trend downward. And on the opposite, and physically broke his foot, small calves, doesn't have, like, he's got these soft tissue injuries for the last year. I'm not even shitting about this.
You did tell me
I'm
this
not
straight from the Senior Bowl.
I love Nick Singleton. He's my running back 3 in the class. I love Nick Singleton. But what I'm saying is, to write off Mike Washington because he didn't break out until this last year, I get it. From an analytical standpoint, I 100% get the Mike Washington thing. But he's been going like this the last couple of years, right? He transferred, got up to the SEC, bet on himself. He's a 2-star prospect coming out of high school. Like, nobody really bet on him. Buffalo did. It's just like freaking Buffalo bet on Khalil Mack and it hit, right? Buffalo took a chance on this kid and he did a little bit. He had like a 600-yard season. Then he transferred out, had to split with another kid that was decent, went to an SEC school, Seth McGowan did. And then he goes to Arkansas and, like, he had a running quarterback on his side. If he would have went to, if he would have went to Kentucky, he could have had 1,300 yards. Like Chris Rodriguez did a couple years ago. Like, what I'm saying is, like, is it really that bad?
You're painting a picture of what is probably a stone cold lock to be, running back 6 in this class. Like, yeah, hell yeah. That sounds cool. Great. Nick Singleton, his best season came with Katron Allen. If Mike Washington split a backfield with Katron Allen, he ain't splitting a backfield. It's Katron Allen's backfield.
I don't know about that.
That's how I see it. Yeah, he found his level up. He leveled up. He did it. And for that, he is going to rocket up my running back rankings. He will. He is absolutely going to rocket Sanders up my running back rankings. But to now put him ahead of the guys who I've seen perform at a high level in college because he looked good in Mobile, I'm not there. I'm not there for this position especially. I'm just not. Not saying he's not a good player. He woke me up seeing his reps, seeing the size, seeing the ability. I see it there. Like I said, he is going to rocket up my rankings. But I'm not putting him ahead of Coleman. I'm not putting him ahead of Singleton. I'm not putting him ahead of Allen. And I'm probably not going to put him ahead of Price. But the door is open for him right after that. And that's good for him. That's good for him.
Fair play. We'll pin it. We'll come back in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We'll come back in 3 weeks at the combine.
Cut to 3 weeks from now, be like, Cody was totally right. He is a freak of nature. My running back one. Jeremiah Love was never that good. No, but I'm happy. I'm excited to see. I think that this is why the draft process is so important to some of these players. Like, yeah, you can then when you wow and you then see the trajectory of his profile, you see him coming off his best season ever, which was 1,000-yard season in the SEC. Like, these are how kids become professional athletes when maybe they didn't think that was possible 4 or 5 years ago. So, this is why it's so important.
I can't wait for it will be 18 days from now. 1:30 in the morning. Get back to the Airbnb.
I'm not gonna be bamboozled by this again. You guys bamboozled me. You made me I was skeptical about Rome Odunze. You made me a crazy believer, and I should have stayed skeptical.
What?
Yes.
You were the one that was vouching for Rome Odunze.
Not in the room.
What do you mean? It was Alex was on Marvin, I was on Neighbors, and you were on Rome.
You guys convinced me of who Rome's talent was. I was unconvinced of what Rome could be until that night. That night is when you guys showed me the light of Rome Odunze.
Oh god. I mean, Rome is still good, but
No, he's great. I
he's
still
not
love Gray.
neighbors.
No, and the NFL told us they agreed with your guys' analysis of the player. He's drafted high and was off to a rocket, red hot start until he got hurt. There's nothing wrong with Rome.
Point
I'm
is,
just pulling your leg, brother.
18 days from now, we're going to be having the Mike Washington, Katron Allen, Jonah Coleman conversation, maybe Jadarian Price. We're going to be sitting there splitting. I think we're going to be splitting hairs, arguing next Friday night. Or 2 Friday nights from now.
Two
whatever
Friday nights, yeah. It's possible.
Anyway.
Actually, it's probably guaranteed. I mean, it's probably guaranteed.
All right. On to the big boys. Edge, tackle,
the strength of this class.
The strength of this class. I talked about my top 5 edge guys in a video last Friday. And the depth. I have 13 guys right now with grades in the top 3 rounds. Last year, there was 14 guys drafted. The year before, there was 9 in the first 3 rounds. And I have a couple of guys that are outside that range that, like, personally, if I'm a GM or if I'm drafting, I wouldn't mind drafting. These are the guys that are on the outside looking in. So these are guys that, for me, grade out in kind of the 6.0 to 6.1 tier. This is a traits-based prospect. They often land in this spot because they have the traits or they have, obvious developmental abilities. But they just kind of like, there's a little bit of question mark there for some reason. For me, in this range between 6.0 and 6.1 is 6 dudes that get 4th round grades. It begins with a my guy, which is Kyron Crawford. I haven't figured that one out. It's spelled Kyron. 6037, 251, only 9-inch hands, and the smallest arms of the group, 32 and 2/8 from Kentucky. Comped him to Cliff Averill. High cut, saw him down at the Senior Bowl as well. It's another Senior Bowl guy. But he ended up on the outside looking in because he's a little too skinny in the waist for me in the lower legs. And the pass rush ability, I think, has a bit to grow. And I kind of just want to see some more, first off on the tape, but also like at the Senior Bowl, there was a couple flashes, but the consistency just wasn't there. And I think with his frame, which again seems undersized, like you think you'd want a guy that's like 6'6" or something, but I like the 6037, 251 as a guy that can really bend the edge and get around these big tackles with some speed. And I think he's the highest developmental guy among this group that I have. Other names I put in here, LT Overton from Bama, 6026, 278, came in much smaller than I kind of expected. Gabe Jacques from Illinois, Logan Fano from Utah, Danny Dennis Sutton from Penn State, and then Vincent Anthony from Duke, another one that I really liked down there at the Senior Bowl. Long. I mean, this dude's arms were touching his knees when he was standing straight. They're like long arms. And I love seeing that in an edge rusher, obviously, when they're kind of lined up there. He just got in. He snuck in with the 601. So that's kind of my group there of developmental guys. Is there anybody in that group that you kind of like or you had looking to push up or down from the Senior Bowl or just otherwise?
So I'm actually – my questions are going to come with this next year that we get to because I want to know who you've kind of left out, who you've kind of left out of this top 12-ish because, right, you said 12 or so names you've gone through.
So that there's 13 names ahead of that group.
So, okay. All right. So, okay. That makes total sense. All right. That's exactly where I kind of have these guys. The one that I will continue to keep my eyes on, and I want to know your thoughts on LT Overton because this guy came with a ton of hype in the beginning of the year, had a rough year in terms of production, but is the profile just going to be completely discounted? Did you see enough in person? He was down in Mobile, right? What did he look like?
Nothing.
Yeah. So, okay. All right. So
missing.
that kind of the guy. Yeah. All right.
Like he was almost like it took until day 3. We were like, wait, he's here? Type of situation. Like he didn't do anything.
Oh, that's yeah. So then the fact that I have him at edge 17, go through my updates, I was wondering if I should elevate him against some of these names here that also haven't really popped. But I think I'm going to keep him where I'm at because I'm okay with a couple things being true in this class. The shorter more kind of nuanced, pin your ears back type pass rusher is coming. It's pretty heavy in this draft. I mean, even some of the guys at the top aren't that prototypical long armed, you know, dream about edge rusher. So I like, the kid from Kentucky a little bit more. And so I do I think I'm gonna kind of agree with you that at the end of the day, I'm not gonna boost Overton up over a lot of these outside, looking in these, like you said, traits based prospects, day 3 types.
Another one that had a very, so speaking of that size, that exact size frame, 6'3", 254, 34-inch arms, similar to Vincent Anthony's 34 and 3/8-inch arms. Ran a 4.55 at the combine back in 2023 and got himself up to the 6th overall pick in the 2023 draft, and was a Senior Bowler as well. Derek Hall, who had 2 sacks at Sunday's Senior Bowl. That's kind of the frame I'm looking at with a guy like a Vincent Anthony and a guy like a Kieran Crawford, who actually ended up going to Auburn, exactly where Derek Hall did go. As far as top 14 go, or top 12 go, I
13.
should say, or where did my number at? Top 13.
Yeah.
I think we're similar on a couple of guys, but one that I'm interested to see where you landed on was TJ Parker, because he's been a highly regarded name for the last year plus. Like, as soon as the page was turned to the 2026 NFL draft, TJ Parker's name was at the top.
Mm-hmm.
It's him, Peter Woods, Cade Klubnik, Antonio Williams, the guys from Clemson that were the forefront. And Peter Woods is kind of fuzzled out. Cade Klubnik has dropped. Literally almost has done the Quinn Ewers in this year's class.
Yeah.
It's hilarious because I didn't do shit. I literally
You comped him that.
Quinn Ewers plus.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys remember from the intro to the 2026 quarterbacks. And then Antonio Williams is still probably sniffing that second, third range. He was kind of looked as, I know McShay had him as like looking at the first round before the year, but there's a couple other receivers in that conversation that fell as well. TJ Parker, though, want to know where you ended up on him. 6'3", 263 pounds, 33.25-inch arms. I ended up giving him a pretty high first round grade. Not quite a top 10 grade, but very close. I only gave one top 10 grade in the class at the edge position. That was to David Bailey. And he wasn't even really like a 7.0 or anything. He was a 6.71, so just barely made it in.
No, the grading, I haven't necessarily put my final grades on them. I like to see them at the combine first and then just do a final grade as opposed to tinkering it. I find it just kind of better for my process. But your brain thinks in that regard. You and I use the same grade so that we can talk about them and be on the same page. And I'm kind of there with you. I got TJ Parker right now at edge 4. I'm not going to move him off of edge 4. I think there's 3 guys ahead of him that I would rather have on my team, and I think they will finish the grading process higher than Parker. But what he did in Mobile was just remind everybody why he was a potential first overall draft pick going into the year. Clemson, complete train wreck of a season. But so far of the Clemson fallers, the ones you've mentioned, 2 I think will kind of hold their draft capital. TJ Parker and Avion Terrell. Terrell's looking like a first round cornerback, and TJ Parker, after his Mobile showing, solidified to me he's a first round edge rusher. And like I say this literally every show, people, and I'm sorry for being such a broken record, but you have to always consider these scouts don't scout 6 months a year. It's a 365 thing. So the TJ Parker scouting notes are going to at one point have such high rankings on them, high regards, high grades. So, I'm just going to believe the process. You and I do this all the time. We don't really give it up. Even when the season is here, we're kind of watching and grading, blah, blah, blah. So I have Parker at 4. I think I'm safe with him there. I think he could be really good. I think he's definitely, with this class being so edge heavy, he's a lock for the first round.
Parker, Nussmeier, Singleton, all names that will have good notes on them from 24.
Yes.
And that had, injuries or otherwise in 25 and will still hold their weight to some extent. Do you have a my guy in that top 10 conversation? It sounds like I would anticipate your grouping ahead of him as Bailey, Bain, and maybe Mesidor.
I love Mesidor. And I know he's older, but I just with his ability to join a defense and contribute right away, I'm just not gonna put too many eggs in the age basket, because he's going to go to a contender that needs him now. A team like the Lions comes to mind. So I'm just, as of right now, the draft capital could sway things for me. But as we stand here going into the draft, I just love Mesidor, what I've seen on tape, and I just think he's going to be a game wrecker. So yeah, I do. But my guy of my top 10, someone that I had at edge 10, but after this next update could see himself, really cracking the top 8, maybe even skip some names that are considered first round picks at this moment in time. Derek Moore from Michigan. He really graded out well in the terms of watching him this year. And you want to talk about a guy whose career just has gotten better. It's Derek Moore, coming off an 11-sack season. He was really good for the Wolverines, showed up with size, had some really strong reps down in Mobile. Derek Moore is an edge guy to me that it seems as if his stock is going to fall and, make him outside of the first round. But this is a guy for me that's going to have a top 45 pick grade, in that 6'5", 6'4" range probably when it's all said and done, as long as it doesn't look like an avid, train wreck in Indy. But that's probably my guy right now. I really like a Derek Moore.
Derek Moore, I believe made the – gosh, did he make the – he didn't make the freaks list, did he? I don't think so.
I don't recall hearing his name there.
No, he didn't. He didn't make it. I thought maybe he did. I couldn't remember. But no, he's a guy that kind of you kind of said it, like his growth through the season into the Senior Bowl, and I think not next week, but 2 weeks from now could be an interesting growth platform at the combine where you could see, like, if he takes that step forward, then it's just kind of like he's going to continue to build this thing, and he could potentially crack himself into a guarantee. I think he's probably borderline. I have him second/third. As far as the grade right now, and I think he could solidify himself as a second-round pick. I'm not sure if he can get into the first with the density of this group.
Yeah.
But I do think a bump would be considered for sure if he has a big combine. The other guy my guy at the top is, and I've read some not great stuff. I haven't done like full behind-the-scenes digging, and all these guys, more so my phase 2 is like season film, Senior Bowl. All right, now let's ride into the combine, and then I'll do some more digging after that.
Yeah, we get the questions asked too. Sometimes we get that
then
helped out. Yeah,
and then come back around. But Zion Young is my guy from Missouri, 6'5", 262, 33.5-inch arms. I love Zion Young, and he had a big week at the Senior Bowl. But I'm hearing there may potentially be some flags there. So I'm just going to end that conversation there, but he's my guy that I like to continue to watch. And I just bumped just a touch ahead of Mesidor at edge 5. So let's go to tackle, offensive tackle, because I've seen some discourse. I finished up my offensive tackle stuff this weekend, and I went back, and I always love doing this. And I happened to go to Twitter, and I think it was, oh man, I get the two guys mixed up all the time. Trevor Sikkema and
something Rogers, Taylor Rogers.
No.
Colin Rogers, Connor Rogers.
No. The other guy that was on the Bachelor a couple of years ago. He's now with CBS. Can't remember. Anyway, he tweeted about OT1. He said he was going to have Caden Proctor at OT1, and I thought, damn, I don't have him OT1. Interesting. And I was like, why? I was trying to figure out to myself, okay, so why? And I think purely, and the interesting thing was, if you bring the tweet up, it is everybody commenting on it. Trevor commented on it. Zerline commented on it. Ray G commented on it. Like, there was like a bunch of comments from people about the pecking order, or where they saw him, or I think he fits at guard, or like thoughts and opinions. And I was like, this is interesting. This is a cool development, because I think it's a great conversation to say, like, what is he? And it's easy to say, well, he's a fat ass, put him at guard. Right? But that's like a lazy take, in my opinion. Like, I think he would be a great guard, but that athleticism, Matty, at 6'7", 366, the athleticism that he has, yes, his foot speed could be better, could improve. But if you're worried about foot speed, I'm not sure left guard is the spot. I'm more like, okay, put him over your right guard, plug him on the other side. That's the more, that's the spot where you could deal with having a guy that's a little bit slower, a little bit bigger. But I'm not sure. I mean, that's a transition. That's like, like they always say, it all depends on the player. And I think he's athletic enough. He could do it with ease, but it's like wiping your ass with your right hand, wiping your ass with your left hand, switching sides for some guys.
Yeah.
For him, it could be, I don't know. We'll see. But I think you have the Evan Neal dynamic in there as well, right? Coming from Bama.
Yeah.
Flailed. He was a super good athlete. And flailed out at left tackle, and they tried to bump him into guard, and it didn't work. Hasn't worked.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my question here is, I put him at 4. He's at 4 pretty clearly. He's the 4th guy for me that has a first-round grade. After that, there's 2 guys with the same grade in the second round. Ian Ashore from Arizona State and Lomu from Utah. But there's a clear group of 4 for me at the top that all have grades in the 6.4s. Nobody's got like a top 10 grade. It's all just solid first-round grades for all 4 of these top tackles. Fanu from Utah, Mawigoa from Miami, Monroe Freeling from Georgia, and Caden Proctor from Bama. Those are my 4. And for me, Proctor, I think projects as a tackle. I compared him to Cordy Glenn from Georgia, who carried a lot more weight in his upper half than his lower half and was not quite the athlete that Proctor was, but there's really not a comp for Caden Proctor, in my opinion. People could say Orlando Brown Sr., or they could say
you can
these
get crazy
guys from 40, 50 years ago. Cool. Congratulations on your comp. But I don't know. I struggle with him a little bit. I kind of wonder what you did with Proctor. Did you move him to – I don't want to know if did I alienate you by saying it's a joke to put him at guard? Like, I don't think it's a joke, but I just wonder what you did with Proctor, because we haven't talked about this, and I really don't know what the – so just to be clear, 6'7", 366 would make him the largest among any tackle to be drafted at 6'6" or 6'7". The other largest was a 6'7", 364-pound Mekhi Becton. And he carries his weight much different than Becton.
I have Proctor at my offensive line 3. Okay. And I've had him there. And I think to make him your 1, you're saying something. This is what you're saying. You're saying he fucking nails the combine. That's what you're saying. If you're
Davis style.
Yes, he is. Yeah, because, and I've been saying this about Proctor, of the top guys that you mentioned, if you told me there was a franchise tackle, left tackle, stud in this class, I would say the betting favorite is Caden Proctor. Likelihood of that happening, that's where I bring the questions. That's why he's number 3. If I was sure he was going to be someone's left tackle and it would be as sticky as or predictable as I hope, he'd be my number 1 with a bullet. That size, that athleticism, that ability, it's all there. But there's so much he still has to prove at the combine. Is that athleticism? Does it wow you over some of the other guys that we're talking about here? It's just when you have Fanu, Maui Noah, you have really good players. What you have, in my eyes, is a Will Campbell type player. Yeah, you could take him 4th overall, make him your left tackle, but you're better off taking him, to put him inside, put him at right tackle. I mean, Fanu is actually the right tackle of his own team, with the left tackle being in this exact class in Caleb Lomu. So I'm not docking those guys. I think they're really good, really solid. And even going back a handful of years, just talking about like Fashanu compared to Fasanu. No, is it Fashanu? And who's the kid that Fatanu? Who's the kid that the Steelers took?
Fatanu.
And then who's the kid that the Saints took?
Fuaga.
Yes. Though it's like the same thing. Though we love those.
Fuaga Fatanu.
Yeah, I know. I like trying to recall that from 2 years ago. Just made me realize how difficult it was. But kudos to you for helping me. But that's those guys weren't you're no doubt straight up and down left tackles, but they were very good. So I kind of have that kind of feeling about like a lot of the offensive linemen in this class, that I don't know if we have a left tackle. But like we started talking about, Caden Proctor fits the bill as much as anybody. And if he can show off that some of the red flags can be mitigated, can be expanded upon, you can learn from, build off of that athleticism, that frame, because that is something you can't teach ever. 6'6", 360 that can move. You can't teach that. I don't know if you can. I don't know what just happened.
Can't teach it. 6'6", 6'7", 360. Matty's audio cut out for a minute. His video did as well. I don't know. It's been happening every once in a while on Restream the last couple of weeks. I think they've
Yeah.
got a severe bug that needs to be dealt with on the Restream end. So apologies to the video and audio listeners for just a second there. But you said an interesting thing there. You said, I'm not sure we have a left tackle, which is interesting. I don't know if people realize it or not. They're just following mock drafts. Like
Mhm.
Fuaga played right tackle at Miami. Fanu played right tackle at Utah. And I think that's their preferred spots. I put Fanu as an OT. I do think Fanu could play both sides. He is a little bit light, but I like the athleticism enough. I put Monroe Furling from Georgia, left tackle, but I don't think he's a runaway, like top tier.
Right.
None of these guys are, in my opinion. But Proctor, left tackle, and then you have Iheanacho from Arizona State, second round grade, right tackle, and then Lomu, who played left tackle for Utah. I put him as a second round grade as well.
Mhm.
And like you said, I'm not sure there is a runaway, like, hey, this is a guy that we know we can, build our offensive line on. It's a good class. I think it's a really good class. 1 through, I'd make an argument. I would be willing to draft in the first 3 rounds 9 dudes. Down to Austin Barber from Florida. I have an interesting question for you. Have you watched Jude Bowery yet from up where you're at from Boston College?
I haven't. I've seen his name start popping up, but he's definitely going to be in this next iteration of scouting. He's not going to make the big board update, but I got to get him on the radar.
Got to get him on the radar. So he's a guy, I comped him to Jawan Taylor from Florida, just about 6'5", 6'0", 314, massive pizza pans, 10.5-inch hands,
Mhm.
34 and an 1/8 inch arms, second, third round grade. My interesting thoughts here would be, and we can end it on this. Everybody knows Vrabel's son. Well, everybody should know. Vrabel's son went to Boston College. He's got some connections.
Yep.
He knows these kids, I think. You're up there. New England just had this pretty fun run. A lot of sacks in the Super Bowl. A lot of pressures. Stat running around right now, Will Campbell. You brought up Will Campbell. Only I'm going to bring this up. Will Campbell gives up 14 pressures in the Super Bowl. 29 in the playoffs, most all time, supposedly, according to, I think, Next Gen. You're sitting there at the end of the second round. I think a guy like Jude Bowery would be interesting. Is there any theory or thought up there, like I don't know if you're listening to Boston radio this morning. I don't know if you want to. I probably would give it a week to cool off.
Oh.
But to move Wilson to center, Bradbury walks, to move Campbell inside. Would they move Campbell inside? Has this been talked about in the local radio at all this year? And then you draft a guy, I would say go check out Jude Bowery. He's an interesting piece, I think, would fit in that left tackle spot with great length, and he has the connection to the Northeast, yada, yada. But the theory of a team like New England who just made the Super Bowl and the second round going after a left tackle when you just drafted Will Campbell theoretically as a top 5 overall tackle to bump him inside the guard.
I think that that has been mentioned. That has been the only thing talked about in regards to this offseason for the Patriots is getting a tackle, moving the guard, not from the team, from the media.
Yeah.
And it's obvious as to why. And we kind of got a smorgasbord of pass rushers that attacked Will Campbell. And at first, I kind of was like, okay, well, it was Khalil Mack. It was Will Anderson. These guys are like the exact opposite. Like, these are the guy, long arms. Like, this is exactly what you don't want him to go against. And I was thinking that he'd have a better game against Seattle because their attack is more power than that, long arm kind of finesse. And it was brutal. It was brutal. And it's going to come down to this. Can you convince a 4th overall draft pick to sacrifice millions of potential dollars in the future because the guards don't get paid like the tackles? If he could be solid as a tackle, he's going to make so much more money than if he's really good. He's going to have to be like all pro, real difference maker to get that 20 plus million. I mean, Michael Wenu got it. And people talk about how bad of a deal it was for this team. So it's going to be tough for him to swallow that. But if you can, and Vrabel can do it. Vrabel, I think, is a good enough leader, strong enough leader. And Will Campbell seems like a humble guy who wants to win. And I think the pain of being the butt of the joke that he will be throughout now to the offseason, that's the move. But the problem is, where do you get that, Cody? Where do you get a left tackle that you can convince your 4th overall pick to slide into the interior? Can you get him at 31? I don't know. Can you get him at 63? I don't know.
I think you can get one at 63. It's just getting him. It's just, can you convince Will Campbell to be okay with? That's the big thing, I think, is what's it going to do to the locker room? Would it shut a guy like that? I don't think it would shut a guy like that down.
Doesn't
But
seem like it, no.
I think from a physical traits perspective, I think here's the deal, man. It is what it is. Length matters, right? In everything, life or football. And I think that you get a guy like Jude Bowery or a guy like, Kelvin Banks last year, 4th overall, a little bit longer arms, a little bit more able to take on the power than Will Campbell. Again, here's the thing that made, I think, the New England dynasty so great was the amount of players that were willing to sacrifice.
Yeah.
And you can say that, you can vouch for that. I know you can. But the amount of players that went to New England and sacrificed, born and raised in the New England program and sacrificed, and it starts with Tom Brady. And it's like, if Tom Brady can do it, I think a left tackle can do it, and Will Campbell. And I think Will Campbell's a guy that is 10 toes down for Team Mike Vrabel. So just an idea, just a thought. That's interesting that has been a little bit of a talking point, because the Super Bowl definitely laid that out for us, that was potentially a need. And in a class like this, there's no real blue chip left tackle.
That's right.
But there are a couple later that are interesting. We'll be back later this week with a mock draft. We'll be live not live every single day, but we'll be up every single night, 7 p.m. Eastern time on YouTube. Every single night, 7 p.m. on YouTube. The next morning, it'll be up on podcast, on the Draft Rankings podcast feed every single morning. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday mornings at 4 a.m. As soon as you wake up, get the podcast, download it, 5 stars. We appreciate you. We love you, and we'll see you.
Peace.